Hi, Jordan Morrow here, and I'm excited to share some thoughts with you today, at least record them for you for Decisive 2022, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity I have to share them with you and to speak with you. Let's jump in. As I'm given about 30 minutes of time here, I want to make sure that we use it to the best of our ability. To start off, I want to use this Dilbert comic, and I really like Dilbert comics. I think there's good humor there. I think there's truth there. And unfortunately, I think it can be sad in some of the truth that comes out. So here you have Dilbert. We're going to go box by box on this, okay? We have Dilbert saying, I need to reach data, or I need to get data from some unreachable person. And he asks Dogbert the question, what should I do? Have you ever been in that situation? We do live in a world, especially maybe in your careers, where getting the right data at the right time, that right moment to be able to do something with it isn't easily accessible. So Dilbert asks that question, what should I do? I can't get this. Dogbert says, just make up a bunch of data like everybody else does. Unfortunately, I think that stuff like that can occur. Maybe not a straight up, I've got nothing, I'm going to make up a number. Maybe it does. But I think the misuse of data is probably more prevalent than we think. And then over at the right, or maybe, let me go back to the middle. Might not be more prevalent than we think, but I think it's happening far too often, misusing data or putting data out there where we have good intentions. We think that we're doing a good job, only to find out that maybe we rushed the gun. The model we built wasn't very good. There's a very clear example in my mind. During the early stages of the pandemic, there was a model that was picked up. And when it was picked up and used, it was found later to not be very accurate, right? And so now we go to the final one. Everyone else does that, right? Meaning Dilbert is asking this question. Everybody else is doing this. Are you kidding me? And Dogbert asks back, wait, are you questioning my data? Are you doubting me? The reality is in that last box, we should be able to question data. Not that we're distrusting or anything per se, but that we're questioning it to get the right answer. So let's jump in a little more. Let me introduce myself a little bit more to you. And then that last slide introduced my topic to an extent here. But my name is Jordan Morrow. I'm the Vice President and Head of Data and Analytics for a company called Brainstorm, which is based in Utah, where I live. I've been in the data space for years. If you look at that picture now, I'm not bald. I just don't like having hair, so I shave it off. But I will show that my age, if you look at my beard, it's a lot whiter now than that picture was taken. That picture's probably maybe about 4 years old at this point. But I was lucky enough to help pioneer and invent this entire space of data literacy. I write about it. I still speak about it, which I'm doing here. I'm a published author. I've got one book came out in 2021 called Be Data Literate, a second book coming out here in what are the US summer months in 2022 called Be Data Driven. And I've been commissioned to write my third book, but I'm not going to give that title away yet. And I've got two nicknames in the industry, Godfather of Data Literacy, and I think that one's maybe growing on me. It hasn't always been my favorite. And Chief Nerd Officer, that one I will wear proud. Happy to be a nerd. So let's talk about what we're going to be doing in this presentation. Like I said, you get me for about 30 minutes. I'm going to go through a three-step approach here. The why, this world of data, right? Why in the world would I even be speaking to you? Number two, what is data literacy? So we're going from why to what. And number three, being data driven. How can you do something about this? Right? So, and of course, there's stuff interspersed. You might get some why and some what and some how in all three of these. But I want you to think of it as in that phase, the why, the what, the how. So let's jump in. Now, it is no secret. Want me to show you just how much data we're predicting will be out there? Take a look at this number. Okay, that's 175 followed by 7 sets of 3 or 21 zeros. Any guesses on what that may be? That's first off, it's 175 zettabytes worth of data. That is the annual data sphere by the year 2025. That's predicted, I believe, by IDC. That's a freaking a lot amount of data, or a freaking a lot of data. It's huge, right? But is all that data valuable? No. What we need to get good at, though, is the proper use of data. Now, when I speak proper use, let me make one thing clear. To me, the end goal of data is to make a decision, to change behavior, right? To change outcomes, to do things differently. It's not to build a pretty data visualization, even though that's cool. It's to take data, to find insight, to make a decision, right? That's where we are. So here we are sitting with this massive amount of data. And we have to get good at deciphering it, right? We have to be able to dig in. We have to be able to find what is called the signal among the noise. There's a great book by Nate Silver out there called The Signal and the Noise about predictions, why some predictions succeed and others fail. I might mess that title or subtitle up a little bit there, but that's a lot of data, right? And companies truly are investing a lot of money in data. They're investing a lot. So we have to be able to find that signal, the key pieces that we want amongst all the noise, right? Can we find the nuggets of truth among all the cat pictures that are out there, among all the things that exist from the data that we're producing regularly? So let's talk a little bit about the world of data, right? We're living in this time where people might be wondering about the transition, the fourth industrial revolution, the digitization of everything, digital revolution, digital transformation. My goodness, there's so many hyped terms or buzz terms or whatever. The world of data is growing. It's been growing. It's massive and it's powerful. And so you might be asking yourself, let's look at that top question. What is my role in the world of data and analytics? What did the pandemic do to shape data and force, if you will, companies to be more data driven? What in the world is data literacy? And does my background have a place in data? And what is the future of data technology, jobs? Will robots take my job, et cetera? And how does data interact with digital transformation? All questions that are probably all important. But the reality is we all have the ability to be on a learning journey to get through this world of data. And as organizations learn to use it better, learn to interact better, as technology and software brings advancing tools to the picture, each and every person on this planet can have a part in the data space. Right? Who cares what your background is? Everybody has experience. Everybody has gut feel, I would say. If they don't, then there's something weird, I would say. But everybody has ideas and things like that. We all bring experience to the table. So yes, you have a role with data. And it's not necessarily that you have to be some advanced data scientist. Maybe it's just that you're good at reading data or asking questions of data, doing something with it. But the fact of the matter is, data is advancing, technology is advancing, and we want to keep up with it, i.e. we want to improve our data literacy skills. Now, let me address the second from the bottom, will robots take my job? I've got a story that isn't necessarily will robots take my job, but it's something. I was traveling to South Africa. I was speaking at a conference there. The company that brought me out to speak at the conference was a big partner of the company I worked for at the time. And they asked me, or they had me speak to some of their employees. And a gentleman raised his hand and basically said, or asked the question around, is the data and technology going to make us lazy? And I flipped that on him, I think, is maybe the best way to say it. I asked this gentleman a question. And I said, or I brought up a scenario. I want you to imagine, and you do the same. If you're working in the data and analytics space, and it took you 3 hours to do like a data visualization, a dashboard, updating, whatever, and the technology can now do it in 15 minutes. It's not necessarily that it makes you lazy. It now opens up 2 hours and 45 minutes of time to find insight and to dig in to that work that the tool and technology brought forward. Now we have to hop on the train, right? We have to jump on this ability to go from data to decision. Let me show you that train. We start off with data management, data storage, governance, cleaning of data, etc. We then want to take data to insight and insight to decision. But there are things that need to be done to make that happen, right? Data just sits there and it needs to be acted upon. What is that? Analytics. So analytics acts upon the data, whether that's machine-driven analytics, whether it's us as people analytics, whatever it may be. And we turn the data, or we dig in and we find insight. Utilizing insight and then a framework, data-driven decision-making. I have a friend and colleague, and I'll give him the credit here, named Kevin Hannigan. And he helped build, and I think I have it later in the presentation, data-informed decision-making framework, right? We have to take this insight and part of the data-driven decision-making framework. This is not necessarily so linear as this, do this, do this, do this. Part of that framework can be the analytics, right? To find the insight, but then you take it to a decision, right? Data's end goal, hopefully, is a tool in our tool belt to empower us to make a decision or to change an outcome, etc. Now let's talk about analytics, because I think this is important. There are 4 levels. Did you know that? Did you know there are 4 levels of analytics? The first level is descriptive analytics, where we're describing something, right? Something that has occurred, could occur. We're describing something that may occur. It's a description. It's an observation. You look at the data and it describes something. Okay, I want you to imagine, we're going to use an example to go through this. And I stopped using this example, this story, when the pandemic hit, because I want you to imagine that you're sick, right? And I brought it back, maybe a year ago even. But I want you to imagine that you're sick and you're like, man, okay, I'm going to the doctor, and you go in and he or she finally sees you. And maybe it was quick, maybe it was a long wait, bringing that joke in. And as they talk to you, they describe that you're sick, leave the room, and never to return. Would you go back to that doctor? I sure hope not. Now, I want you to imagine that you stay with the doctor, or the doctor stays, and he or she says, okay, you're sick. Here is why you're sick. That's your diagnostic analytic, the why behind it. So if we go back to the train, you've got your data and all that. A descriptive analytic could be born. You've got analytics. There are 4 levels. You get to that diagnostic and you find out why something is occurring. So in our case, we're sick, and the doctor says, okay, you're sick. Here's why. Then the doctor says, if you do A, B, C, X, Y, Z can occur. I.e., if you're sick and you do this, we'll get you better. Think about that in the data space, organizationally. Descriptive analytic, you figure out why something is occurring. You build a prediction around it. Sometimes a doctor will give you a prescription, something external, telling your body essentially to get better or helping to get better. And then finally, it's iterative process. In the business world, unfortunately, I would argue that the majority of organizations are stuck at the first level, descriptive analytics. Organizations, or a lot of them, are investing a lot of money in predictive and prescriptive. You hear about AI, machine learning, blah, blah, blah. We're missing out on the diagnostic or the insight level. Now, do doctors always get it right? Do we always get it right in business? The answer is no. It's iterative. We learn. One of my favorite quotes is Nelson Mandela, and hopefully I don't butcher it, but it says, I never lose. I win or I learn, right? In data and analytics, as you build models, as you do things, you're not necessarily wrong. You're not necessarily failing. You're learning, right? You're iterating. So one of the things that the pandemic illuminated, let me share a story about my career and everything pandemic wise. Okay. But during the pandemic, pre-pandemic, so pre-shutdowns, I was on the road quite a bit. Okay. Traveling a lot domestically, even internationally. 1 to 4 times a month is probably a good guesstimate of how long I was traveling. And I worked from home. So I worked from home long before the pandemic. And when the shutdowns occurred, I think I thought, God, my calendar is going to open up. I'm not traveling. I'm going to open up. And I think I joked that my family, because I was on the road so much, is going to get sick of me. Well, guess what happened to my calendar? It got busier. And I surmise, or I think the reason for that is companies wanted to be data driven. And I'm known as the data literacy guy. They wanted to be data driven and they weren't. And I found that through the pandemic, 5 key principles we have to think about to be data driven. You need a holistic data strategy. You need the right tools and technology. You need the right data literacy skill set. And in this case, we got to make sure we also have a skill set with the tools and technology we have. You need the right culture and change management in place to ensure you have buy-in. And you need the right leadership support to succeed. 5 key pillars. As a part of that, let's bring up that thing before. Part of the problem was, I think companies were realizing that they weren't data driven, and maybe they were realizing it was because of the skills gap. Okay, that skills gap is huge. We can buy as much technology as we want and force it on people, but if they don't know how to use data, they're not necessarily going to succeed, right? So we just threw this why, right? I would say we were setting the tone. Now let's talk about the what. Let's talk about this world of data literacy. And data literacy, to me, it's like my baby, right? Because I don't think I shared this already, but if I have, I'm sorry for repeating. But where did this come from? Where did my thoughts around this occur? So it could be even 8, 9, 10 years ago. I was working at American Express, probably about 8 years ago is a good timing, maybe less than that. I ran or was helping build and ran a business intelligence group for the US consumer group of cards at American Express, the largest portfolio of cards there. And we were democratizing data. And I was told, I can sort of remember the phone call with my VP in New York, which is where American Express is headquarters. I lived in Utah at the time. I still live in Utah. And my VP, we was like, well, we'll get people out there, et cetera. We'll get you guys to train. And my boss said, well, I think I can, or something, maybe I can. And I said something like that. And the VP was like, oh, no, Jordan, you don't have a choice. You have to come out and train. So I would travel to New York and I would train people on dashboards and what we were building and what we built. I would meet with people, I think, just to get ideas around what they wanted to network or whatever it was. And then I had an idea. Wouldn't it be cool if we could teach them like basic statistics? Essentially, I would say it was teaching them analytics or teaching them how to use data to find insight. And I built a plan to train them on that. And I presented it to my EVP and she just said no. Well, not just no, she said, no, they're not ready for it, maybe in the future. And little did I know what I was, I think, stumbling upon, which was essentially data literacy. And then Click gave me an opportunity, hired me. I was product agnostic. And lo and behold, now I'm known as the godfather of data literacy, I guess, and all that. And so through that journey, so let's jump in, talk about the what now. By definition, data literacy is the ability to read, work with, analyze, and communicate with data. Now, when we first built this or first used a definition, I want to make sure I'm giving credit where it's due. Raul Bargoff, and I believe he was at MIT at the time, and Catherine D'Ignacio, who was at Emerson University, had the definition as the data literacy is the ability to read, work with, analyze, and argue with data. Now, the argue side caused, I don't want to say it caused confusion, but it caused, well, maybe confusion. They would be like, what, are you arguing with your data like you personally? Yeah, it could be. Or are you positioning something and arguing it backed up with data? Well, okay, both of those are good things, et cetera. Eventually at Click, we changed the definition to be the ability to read, work with, analyze, and communicate with data. 4 key characteristics, okay? Now, let's talk about each one individually, and maybe I'll tie them in holistically. The ability to read data means you have the ability to look at data and information and comprehend it, right? Makes sense. Not everyone needs to be able to read data at the same level as everybody else. You might have a basic understanding of how to read and comprehend data, but get really good at that. And then a data scientist, a machine learning ops guy or girl, data engineering, let me say that again, machine learning ops guy or girl, a data engineer, a data scientist, all these different things, right? Reading data is going to vary between individuals and their skill sets, right? The ability to read means to look at and to comprehend. It means to be able to dig in and to understand what you're looking at. That is reading data. Second one down means to work with data. In some cases, you're a data scientist and you're digging in, and this person, he or she, is diving in, doing statistics, modeling, hypothesis testing, all of it. And some of us might only receive a PowerPoint or an Excel sheet where you filter a little. That's working with data. Analyzing data means your ability to analyze, to argue, argue with, to use the 4 levels of analytics. And number 4, and I kind of call this the ability to communicate with data, right? Or I call this the secret sauce, basically. Communication. You could do all you want reading, working with, and analyzing data, but if you can't communicate it effectively, it might not be worth a thing, okay? It might not be worth a thing. So these 4 key characteristics make up the definition of data literacy. Let me make sure something's clear. Not everyone needs to be a data scientist. Let's make that perfectly clear. But everyone needs to have data literacy skills. Okay, so we have to get that in our minds. Okay, so now we've gone through the why. We set the tone with all this data. This is the what? Data literacy. Are you effectively able to consume with confidence data and information? And in some cases, before I go on, I want to make sure one thing's clear. With reading, working with, analyzing, and communicating, you might not do much with it. You just might get really good at asking questions, but you know the right people to ask the questions too, right? That could be a key characteristics of your skill set for these 4 levels. But we went through the why, the what. Now, let's talk about the how, okay? Remember, we're looking at that train. You've got data, using analytics to get insight, using insight, the data-driven decision-making framework to get a decision. You remember that data-driven decision-making dubs into the analytics side, and it dubs into the data side of things. So let's talk about this how. What can you do? From a personal data literacy perspective, I get asked questions on what should I do to start, or what can I do, or do I need to go back to school for statistics, et cetera? No, okay? The first thing I want you to do is what I call the 3 C's of data literacy. 3 C's. I want you to get more curious. Okay, asking questions is the backbone, I would say, or the pillar of good data and analytical work, but we have to ask good questions. I have 5 children. I don't know what it is. Children are so curious. How many questions do you think I get all the time from my kids? 5 kids? Think about that. I never, ever want them to stop. Even though at times I'm frustrated and annoyed, there's no lie. I never want them to stop asking, ever. We as adults stop asking, and I'm not sure why. We fall into routines. We take on jobs and we just do what we're told. Stop it. I want you to get curious. If data is presented to you and you're not understanding it, ask. If you want me to help you, ping me, join me on LinkedIn. Just come to me. Get good at asking questions here. And I'm going to tie, the next one's creativity. Bring your skills to the table with data and analytics. It's not all about numbers, formulas, coding, data. No. Be creative. So let me show you a little bit about curiosity and creativity from an example with me. Before I ran that, or before I helped run that business intelligence group at American Express, I did risk analytics. And this is not long after, well, a couple, 3 maybe years after the housing crisis in the US. And I inherited a report that was built, like the data was built in Excel, and it populated, and it built a lot of charts, and then it populated a PowerPoint that had over 70 slides long. What the stupid. And this report went to top key executives or leaders around the company. Why in the world did we build that report? Huge. Well, one day, my creativity, curiosity, or whatever, I took that report and I built 6 total charts that they could look at on their phone. And I remember showing it to my SVP. I don't remember the purpose or the reason. And he was like, this is it, right? This is all we need to be sending. Curiosity and creativity took what was a massive report that was stressful, but you're sending this to top people in the company. And it broke it down to 6 charts. Get curious, ask why you're doing things, get creative, use your talent, use your experience, use your mind to bring it to data. And the third C, which I don't know who would argue with me on this, I'm going to actually bet a lot of people would, just given the environment we need to get better at critical thinking. And you may be thinking, oh, I know a lot of people that way. No, we all need to get better. Social media has great value in some ways, but has, of course, massive bad value. I don't know if that's grammatically correct in others. But I think it has taken away from our ability to critically think. And so, or maybe we're just lazy. I don't know. Like, I don't want to knock or have negative connotation, but I want you to critically think more. Ask more questions, bring creativity, and critically think. That's how you get started with data literacy. And then you move into different spaces. The data field is huge. If you don't like statistics, don't do statistics. Get into maybe data visualization. If you don't like data visualization, don't do it. Maybe you get into data governance. The field is wide and massive. So many things can be done in this space. Find your niche or find what you like. Mine, I went to school for a little while back at university to be a math teacher. I love to teach. So it doesn't surprise me that data literacy was something that gravitated to me on what I would want. Now, this is that framework. You'll see in the bottom, if I'm looking at my screen, it's the bottom right corner. This is Kevin Hannigan's methodology. If you go to his website, the 6 A's of data-informed decision-making. You might hear it be called data-driven decision-making. It's okay. Okay, either way, the purpose is we are not trying to supplant or replace the human. We want to combine the human element with the data element. You can use this framework to do it. Ask, get good at asking questions. Acquire, get good at acquiring the right data. It might be that all you do is ask a good question. Then you work with the data engineering team, the data architect team, a data analyst, whomever, a data practitioner, and say, I need data for this. Work with them. Remember, communication with data, you better be able to communicate your question well. Acquire the data, then analyze that data. Find the insight. Do not, if you stop at a descriptive analytic and I find out about it, you might get a talking to. Don't just build the script. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a place. We need dashboards and reports. Remember, that has its place. Okay, in this case, this is a data-driven decision-making framework where we're making decisions off the data. More than likely, we're gonna, well, in a lot of cases, we're gonna want to go beyond a description. So get good at analyzing. Again, it might just be asking questions and communicating that with the data practitioner. The fourth A, apply. Your human experience, your human element matters so much. Okay, let's make that perfectly clear. Every one of you, no matter who you are, your human element applies, your experience. You have a lot of history, a lot of skills, all of them. Again, combine the human element with the data element to make a decision. Number 5, we better freaking announce what we're going to do. We need to decide on a decision. We need to make the decision. We need to communicate it with the right parties. Again, communication comes in. Here's a hypothetical. Imagine you find some amazing insight through an analysis and you're so bad at communicating with data. It might have been the golden nugget insight to transform your business into a juggernaut, and you can't communicate it. Get really good at communication. A great book on data storytelling, I would say, that can empower you or help you in communication is by Brent Dykes, Effective Data Storytelling. If you don't follow him on LinkedIn, follow him. I would call him one of, if not the world's leading expert on data storytelling, which is, if you study data and analytics, it's talked about a lot. Finally, assess. Okay, you need to assess what you're doing. So 6 A's. It's iterative. As you can see here, it's circular. Are we always going to get it right? No. Things have probability, or data and analytics a lot of times could be built on a probability or statistics, right? Sometimes maybe not, sometimes, but I'm going to guess that maybe all the time, it's based on there's a likelihood of something happening. If it doesn't, don't freak out unless you built it horribly wrong, but learn from it and iterate. There is your circle. Ask, acquire, analyze, apply, announce, assess. Now, how do we do this? How can you be data-driven, all right? You've got that framework, all of that. First thing, what am I trying to achieve? This is a 5-step roadmap for you to get better with data or to make data-driven decisions. Don't start off with tools and technology. I think that's what businesses did in the past. I apologize, my nose is really itching here. I think that's what they tried to do. You buy technology because a salesperson makes it look amazingly good and you're not getting the results you want. Don't start with technology. Start off with, what am I trying to achieve with data, right? What are we trying to achieve with data? Number 2, what is the strategy that will help me achieve the outcome? Now, number 3, do I have the right tools to help me succeed? Number 4, do I have the right skills to use the tool to accomplish the strategy? And then, of course, if you do those things, etc., you can get to you get to your outcome. Number 5, is the environment correct for me to do it? Get the culture right. Number 1 roadblock to data and analytics success is the culture. It's not technology, it's not data. Is the environment ready to do this, and are we ready to do it? Now, these 5 steps, I think I've changed them and made my own, but they were a part of, I don't have the reference, but you can LinkedIn me for it, a report that came out when I was at Click, a partnership between Click and Accenture on the human impact. I believe it was titled The Human Impact of Data Literacy. And you can find these steps, I would argue, maybe not in this order or whatever it is, similar to this. So, but anyway, 5 steps. Set your outcome, build a strategy to achieve the outcome, arm yourself with the right tools and technology, train yourself with the right skills, make sure the environment and culture are correct. With that, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got a YouTube channel on data literacy and Instagram actually on data literacy. I wrote a book on data literacy, Be Data Literate, the data literacy skills that everyone needs to succeed. Something messing up the subtitle then here. But anyway, hopefully you've been able to glean something. Hopefully you've been able to learn. I'm an open book. Connect with me, reach out to me, ask me questions, and hopefully I'll be able to help you. Thank you again.